Good morning. My name is Dr. Larry Force, and I am a professor of psychology at Mount St. Mary College and director of the Center on Aging and Disability Policy with my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Jeffrey Kahana. Every Wednesday, we come together for this dialogue and exchange called ProActive Caring School Exchange. And that initiative is spearheaded by Lisa Nathan as a parent, advocate, and meditator, and by Peggy Pisano as a school psychologist and advocate. We're so glad that you're able to join us and be able to have access to the material that you'll find on our proactivecaring.org digital resource center. We would like to acknowledge and thank with full support the New York State Developmental Disability Planning Council. They've been tremendous partners, and without their support, we would not be able to have this type of platform develop and evolve. Today, the theme of today is creating a balanced day, blending school, work, and play in a mindful way. So you know that when you're asked to do a video cast, it's because you have something to say. When you're asked to come back and be a guest again, you know that you have something to really say. And we are really glad that Dr. Mike Hibbert and Dr. Patricia Zyganovich have joined us again today, because they truly have a very, very powerful and strong and realistic message. So with that, I would like to introduce Dr. Mike Hibbert, and thank you for joining us, and Dr. Patricia Zyganovich, and off we go. So well, Mike or Pat?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Force. We're really pleased to be back as part of the ProActive Caring School Exchange. We had such a great experience when we joined you way back in June, and here we are on September 30th. And as we talk to the folks out there, the parents and caregivers, your children are back at school. Well, maybe. we hope they're back at school. Maybe for your family, you've memorized the hybrid model and you're sending your kids to school on 3 different days on alternate Wednesdays and have to deal with that kind of craziness. I should say I'm a retired high school principal, so I watch my colleagues now talking about which day of the week it is and who's even there. It's not easy for sure. Or maybe you're monitoring the one-room schoolhouse and with a range of grade levels and abilities, and you're trying to keep your kids on track as the school brings you activities for them to do. And at the same time, you're trying to do your own work at home. So for most of us, the usual look of September is anything but usual. And look anything like I remember the opening of schools to be in the 30 years that I was the principal of my school. So our topic today, Mike and I, is creating a balanced day which blends school, work, and play in a meaningful, mindful way. My guess is if you're listening to this on September 30th, you're saying, oh yeah, right. That's easy for you to say. And you'd really be correct. It is easy for us to say as we sit in our kitchens and are not dealing with a somewhat chaotic situation. And as we move forward through the school year, the challenges are sure to continue. Not going to be a quick fix. But as you've already learned through the ProActive Caring School Exchange, creating our own mindful behaviors as parents, as adults, understanding what I heard Lisa say earlier in one of the videos, that your best self is right now. I thought that was so meaningful, kind of gets you off the hook a little bit when things don't really go the way you had hoped they might. That will enable understanding those mindful behaviors and those strategies, embracing that feeling that right here in this moment, this is my best self. That's going to enable you to help your children navigate what's sure to be the most unique school year that has ever been experienced. I don't think we have any idea of what's yet to come. Recently, I read a New York Times article, and they explained that school from home, at any level, without structured lunchtime and recess and after-school activities, we'd add without friends and without fun, because school really should have some fun, can feel like an unbroken stretch of time. That was an interesting description. The New York Times solution was to establish a routine. Now, most of you are taking on the role of teacher for at least some of the time, and this advice is good. And along with the really excellent suggestions, I listened to the presentation that Stacy Orzel gave earlier about ways to access remote learning. I've passed on your tip, Stacy, to a number of people about closed caption TV as you're trying to listen to the teacher or listen to whatever's being broadcast. It's brilliant. I don't know why I'm an educator. I don't know why we ever didn't think of that before. Great idea. That kind of information is really going to be helpful to the parents out there who are looking for answers to, how do we manage what is sure to be a difficult situation. All throughout that, you want to be creating a sense of calm and purposefulness, so your youngsters don't feel that little chaotic feeling that you might have in the pit of your stomach. Mike and I would like to add an additional solution to this idea of establishing a routine in a mindful, thoughtful way. Rather than you establishing the routine, we believe you can teach your youngsters to establish their own routine. So to do so, we're suggesting a process that we're going to explain here this morning that we believe can help your children be more involved in planning his or her own day while practicing a skill that's actually applicable to all aspects of life. We call it the cycle of problem solving. And right now, the important problem to solve is for your youngster to be part of how to organize the day, how to feel productive, how to feel good about what they've done and good about themselves, and even have a little bit of fun. And we believe that together, you and your child can create a balanced day that blends school, work, and fun in a purposeful way. And we're hoping that the process that we're going to talk about in a minute will help you do that. So here we have a process called the cycle of problem solving. Now, problems often create anxiety. They themselves are stressful, and solving the anxiety around the problem is itself a problem to solve. And what better way to begin the process of problem solving and approaching a problem than doing what Lisa and Peggy have been advocating through the ProActive Caring School Exchange all year long about creating a mindful strategy, using a mindful strategy that will be helpful in reducing that anxiety. So to get us started, I'm going to ask Lisa to lead us through a strategy, an activity to kind of get us a little bit in the moment, teach, model a little bit about how to bring yourself to that spot where you might be in a better frame of mind for how actually trying to solve the problem. So I'm going to turn it over to the expert and ask Lisa to do that part for us.
Lisa's muted.
Ah, Lisa is muted. Okay. Lisa, Lisa, I don't know if you can hear us. We can't hear you.
All right, sorry there. I forgot to unmute. I'm using a different thing, so I didn't see my my mute. Anyway, thank you. And I said before on mute that I consider myself an advanced beginner. So, so you bring up the idea of problem solving, and I'd like to take that idea and bring it to mindfulness and meditation. So what I'm going to show you today is a solution. When we have ruminating thoughts of stress and worry, I should really say worry and fear in our minds, our body manifests those thoughts as anxiety and stress. Our body and mind are connected. And those thoughts can lead to actual physical stress. And it can get out of control unless we know how to control it. So what I want to do is propose to you a method of breathing, because we can control that physiological response of anxiety and stress through our breath. So we're going to do something called box breathing or square breathing. There's lots of stuff online, videos and tutorials on this. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to talk you through it, and then we're going to do it together. So what we're going to do is we're going to inhale to a count of 4. We're going to hold our breath to a count of 4. We're going to exhale to a count of 4 through our mouth. I'll go over that again more clearly. I'm sorry. And then hold for a count of 4. So again, we're going to breathe in through our nose for a count of 4. Hold our breath for a count of 4. Breathe out through our mouth like blowing out a candle through a count of 4, and holding for a count of 4. And let's do that for a cycle of 4 times, okay? Let's get started. I'll do the count. Don't worry if it feels a little bit even uncomfortable. This is a method that I'm going to teach you, and then you can practice. Okay, let's start. And we're going to relax, or we always start with a little bit of relaxation, a nice clearing breath in through our nose. Out through our mouth. Ground ourselves in our chairs where we're sitting, feeling our sit bones, feeling our hands in our lap, on the table, wherever they are. Feeling the relaxation, letting go of tension. Any tension might be in our eyes, our jaws, our shoulders, even our bellies. I know this is very helpful for Stacy, relaxing. We relax our jaw, we relax our tongue. Don't clench our teeth. And we're going to ground. Okay, let's start. Remember, breathing in through your nose, and you're going to breathe out like you're blowing out a candle. Okay, inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And that was 4 cycles. You can do this for as long as you'd like. Again, this creates a physiological response in the body, which turns on your relaxation mode and actually creates a relaxation response in the body. The military has taught this to Navy SEALs when they're before going into combat situations, in stressful situations. If it's good enough for Navy SEALs, it's good enough for us. And it really, really works. And you can teach it to your children. You can even have them trace a box. So there's lots of visuals online, and they can trace it as a square going around, and they can learn this technique. And again, it's a practice. So you're going to learn. And just one other thing, because I like to create the view that just do the best you can. It's okay wherever you are. If you're showing up with a lot of anxiety and stress, accept it. Use these techniques to ground yourself and go from there. Again, every breath is a new moment. Forgive yourself. It's okay. We're doing the best we can, as parents, as educators, just as human beings. So with that, turn it back over to Pat.
Thank you. Everything you said is exactly what Mike and I are advocating for. We think that if in the actual process of solving a problem, when you have a shared language, when you have a process, you have something that you can actually practice. And in the same way, our hope for kids is they learn those mindful strategies to use them independently, and they learn to use this process for solving problems that they can use that independently. In the meantime, as adults, if we model those things and we help ourselves, we've learned both how to be more mindful and more, it sounds funny to say assertive in the same breath as mindful, but actually taking true steps to try to reduce our anxiety, and also to learn a process for solving problems that is applicable to any adult as well as a child. So with that said, I'm going to ask Mike to explain the problem-solving process, and ask Dr. Force to put up the first slide, which is called Cycle of Problem Solving. Okay, we've got it. And Mike, you're on to talk about the six-phase process.
Thank you. Thanks, Pat. So this graphic is called the cycle of problem solving. And around the outside of this graphic, you see there are 6 phases we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about creative and critical thinking. Around that cycle, there are some boxes that have what we call guiding questions in them. And so you've heard us use the word problem quite a bit. We're using the term problem to solve, but the term, you could change the term and say a goal to accomplish. And that you would use that maybe if the word problem has a negative connotation at the child. So let's look at this cycle and see what's in there. So phase 1 is after the practicing of the stress reduction anxiety method. Then the child is ready to more calmly get into the thinking of what the problems are. And the first step is to basically define the problem. So what's the problem? You may help the child to state the problem, put the problem into their own words, and the child can say something like, how can I ... Then we go to phase 2, and phase 2 is where the child talks about what he or she perceives causes the problem, and how they feel about that. The adults can help the children describe the behaviors that happened in the incident that really is the basis for the problem, so that we're more aware of the details of what happened and how we feel about it. Older children might research the problem to have more information to use when getting around to solving it. Phase 3 is where the child considers as many ideas as possible to solve the problem. This is called brainstorming, and the adults can help the child think of just one idea and record it. Think of another idea and record it. So the idea is to try to create more and more ideas for what the solution might be. And we're then in the stage 4, the child then looks at those ideas and picks one that looks like it might be a good way to move ahead in solving the problem. So the child has an invested interest in not only defining the problem, but thinking of possibilities and then picking a possibility that might be worked out. And then in phase 5, the child carries out the problem. So they actually implement the idea that they had in solving the problem. And then after they have tried that, they come back and the last step is to say how we do. After the child has tried the plan, which is the solution, we hope, he or she talks about how well that plan worked, and then how might that plan be used in the future when something like this happened again. Now you'll see in the middle of the circle, you'll see the words critical and creative thinking. And creative thinking is an important part of problem solving. And you can see that it's together with critical thinking. They're intertwined and they're essential to problem solving. A child uses creative thinking when he or she is thinking outside the box to try to think of different ways to solve the problem. The more ideas created, the better. The more ideas that are created, the better chance there is to actually find a good one. Creative thinking is a skill which empowers children to consider many possibilities, options, and opportunities. And that, as we mentioned, the strategy of brainstorming is the most popular way to generate lots of ideas. And when brainstorming is happening, we want to encourage the child to think of lots of ideas. Crazy ideas are fine. Let's just think them, write them down, have fun, and you might say, let's try to think of 5. And when the child thinks of 5, we might say, come on, good, you got 5. Let's do 2 more. Let's do 2 more. So you're encouraging the child to be creative, to be productive in this creative thinking. Often, a strategy is to write down these ideas on Post-it notes or pieces of paper with adhesive tape on them. And as you're creating ideas, you just write them down and you stick them up. And so you'll have a big array of ideas. And somewhere in that array maybe is one that's going to be just the right one to implement. So creative thinking does not work alone. It's always connected to critical thinking. And critical thinking is when the child considers the effects of each of the possible solutions and selects one or more to try to be the actual solution of the problem. So critical thinking continues as the child selects a solution to try. Back to you, Pat.
I'd like to just add to what Mike just said, that although we're talking about children in this situation, this cycle is applicable to anybody, adults in their workplace, a parent trying to make a decision about anything, because it's a procedure, a thinking procedure that we're hoping, or what we're advocating for, is that it becomes a way of life, a way of thinking in any situation, at your work, at your home, and so on. So often we as adults get a problem and we jump right to, okay, let's just solve it. And then we never even do step 6, which is to evaluate its effectiveness. So, you know, our hope is that it is applicable beyond just working with your children in the COVID world, but for you at any time. So now that you are the teacher and you have some basic understanding of this problem solving, we want to consider how your youngster might use this cycle to make decisions about organizing the day. First, you and your child together might design your own cycle to help guide you through your problem solving thinking. And Dr. Force, if you could put the next slide up for us. Here's one that is a design on a piece of paper pinned to a wall. There's the 6 phases. And if you go to the next one, next slide, please. You've got another one drawn on chalk in a driveway. And the idea being that you and the youngster are thinking through those 6 phases and using those diagrams, that thinking, to help you solve the problem. And in this case, the problem is, the first problem is organizing a day in the COVID-19 school year, but the problems of COVID-19 in the school year will be ongoing throughout the school year. I mean, it's not going away on October 1st by any stretch of the imagination. So by following the phases and asking questions at each phase, it gives structure to the solving of the problem. Encouraging kids to solve their own problems, especially important ones. You know, it's one thing when we give them permission to, you know, take care of something that's really not important, but something as important as managing the challenges of the COVID-19 school year empowers them to be more independent and self-confident. And children will be practicing a skill that's applicable to any situation and to school life when life gets back to normal. And yes, I do believe that someday that will happen. And perhaps all of us will be having this kind of conversation in a room together rather than on our computers. So we're going to now look at the cycle. The one that Mike just showed us was one that was general about how the cycle works. Now we're going to look at one that's designed around the idea of organizing the day in the world of COVID-19. So Mike and Dr. Force, if you give us that next slide.
Great, thanks. So here's another copy of the graphic. And one of the things you'll notice is that there's a kind of a framework for this graphic. And however you draw it on the driveway or on a piece of paper, or you see it more formally, or you creatively construct it in some way that's fun in your house, there's some similarities. There's a structure to it. There is a process to it. There are phases. There are, what you see in the little boxes around this are guiding questions. So this is giving everybody, giving the children, giving the adults a common framework, a common visual framework, a common vocabulary framework to be thinkers around problem solving, not just reactors to problems. So, and I'm going to use the word guiding questions to talk about those actual questions we have in the box. So, and you can help your child learn how to take more control and responsibility for organizing themselves through helping them think in the context of these guiding questions. A strategy that we use again is to put answers to questions, put the students' words around questions on Post-its or on pieces of paper with adhesive tape and stick them onto this chart. You know, kids love to write on the wall. We don't think we'll have to do that, but maybe a good substitute, a second choice, plan B, would be to put Post-its you know, on graphics like this. So let's look at the phases a little bit more carefully. So the phase one is always stop, relax. What's the problem? Okay, let's try to state the problem in our words. A way to state it might be, how could I organize my day so I feel good and productive? And we like to work with the child to not just adopt the adult's version of the question, but to help phrase the question that is true to what the issue is, but in language and vocabulary that makes sense to the kids. So the kids would feel already ownership in being able to actually be part of defining the problem and stating it. Phase two is research. And so this is, rather than just rushing into solving a problem, we've defined it. Now we're going to say, what do we know about it? We're going to do a little research. What happened? What was going on? You know, thinking about your day, what are the things that you must do? What are the must-do things? Let's write some of those down. Let's write them on Post-its, and we're going to make a big collection of must-do stuff. From school, from home, wherever the must-dos are, let's do that. Now, let's do, what do we want to do? Let's write the what do we want to do list. Let's put those on Post-its. We'll have a big group of Post-its of what do I want to do. And so you can imagine now the child writing or drawing on Post-its or pieces of paper and sticking them up and organizing them into groups. And you're encouraging the child to think of more, try some other ones. That's an interesting one. And you look for productivity here. You look for lots of productivity. So an interesting thing to do is, are there any to-dos that are in both categories? Are there some things that are the must-dos? And there are some things I want to do. And if you find something that's in both categories, that's a great starting point to have some agreement about, you know, creating a plan for a routine to do the things that must be done and things that you like to do. So that's good. Now, phase three. Phase three is to, you're going to look at the must-dos, and you're going to look at the want-to-dos, and you're going to now start picking out a set of some must-dos and some want-to-dos that might start to create a plan. And so the child picks and maybe puts them together and creates another little grouping of combination of must-dos and wants-to-dos. And you say, well, how about another one? Let's create another plan. You know, what else? What's another way of getting at this? And so the child creates another plan, may take some from the original little grouping and add some things to it, but reorganizes it to try to even find a better way. And maybe we do that another time, a third time. So we're looking at different ways of taking some ideas and putting them together that creates a plan that is probably lead us towards feeling good and feeling productive. Now, phase 4 is now that I have ideas for groupings for to-dos and wants-to-dos, must-dos and must-dos and wants to do. Now we can say, okay, let's pick one. Okay, let's now pick the set that we're going to use to create a plan to use so that we feel good and productive about what we're doing. And so I mean, a rule here kind of as you're doing this is that you have to have, you know, the most important must-dos. Your plan can't just be a plan that says, well, I'm not going to do any of the must-dos. I'm just going to do what I want to do. No, that doesn't work. You've got to pick the most important must-dos, and then we're going to pick the most popular want-to-dos, and we're going to make a plan that way. So we do that. And so one of the strategies to, once you have picked out the must-dos and want-to-dos, is to put a long piece of masking tape on a wall someplace, and you stick the must-dos and the want-to-dos along that masking tape. And by the hour, you might on the masking tape write down, you know, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, all that, and the child would then place the Post-its or the pieces of paper with the adhesive tape there that shows where the must-dos occur and where the want-to-dos occur, and you've got now a plan of action that the child had a lot of control over. And then you implement it. And so step 5 is, okay, do it. So the day happens and you go for it, and you can refer to the plan of action that you have on your strip of masking tape and Post-its, and you do it. And then at the end of that day, there's the last part of this, which is really, really important in becoming a better problem solver, is to say how to go. Okay, let's look at what you did. Now, as you worked during that day, that's phase 5, every time that you actually did something, you took it off the tape. So the Post-it then gets removed maybe down below it. So it's gone. You indicate, I did that, and I did that, and I did that. And at the end of the day, when you look back at it, some of the questions are, how many Post-its did you take out of your plan during the day because you accomplished them? What's left? What didn't get moved? What didn't get, why are those left? Were there any other ideas that should have been in that list that really weren't? Okay, so we're thinking about the things that work, thinking about the ways we can improve. And we ask, so what did that tell you about how you accomplish your plan? So what's next? What's your, how can you make a plan that's even better as we move forward? And now a couple of thoughts about encouraging children to persist and improve. The best strategies include paying attention to the child's specific behaviors and stating what you saw and heard in a sense of facts rather than evaluations. For example, you might say, I saw you almost stop your work, but then you kept trying. And that's better than saying, you did a great job of doing your work. The first way of giving that feedback tells the child that you actually were paying attention and saw and heard what he or she did, and that your comment about it is based in fact, so it's probably true. The second way is a pat on the back, which, oh yeah, well, you're just saying that, pat on the back, what's that really mean? And it doesn't promote the same kind of internal motivation that, a different kind of, the first kind of response was. It's really always a good thing to try not to go to gold stars and other kinds of rewards. It's just that does not create, does not reinforce that internal motivation. But it's okay to celebrate. Success is celebrate, and being able to, a success is finding something that didn't work and finding a way to improve it. There's lots and lots of kinds of successes. So celebrating success is a great thing. Let the child solve the problem of how to celebrate. And so now you're getting the child to apply that kind of problem solving strategy another way, and just have fun at this. Have fun. So other problems to solve that could be addressed this way is that children could look and think through how to organize their house into a little schoolroom. How can you make a space that's really conducive to your remote learning? How do you stay connected with your friends that you can't visit? How do you develop a routine for exercise and maintaining athletic skills without physical education classes or organized sports? All those are opportunities for applying a problem-solving strategy. Ideas for organizing a family event, such as a weekend or a family vacation, whatever that means these days, can be done with the same process of note cards around the cycle of problem solving and masking tape as a plan of action. Have fun, play games. Organize teams of adults and children to solve the problems. Play competitively. Which team or individual can think up the most ideas for a solution? Draw pictures of the created solutions and have fun naming them and looking at the picture and having a little fun, maybe a laugh. Well, the visual structures that we're showing you and the consistent use of the guiding questions and the phases creates a framework within which to think and have conversations. So you build success on success on success and on success. So you're feeling good about yourself, you feel productive, and you're getting this feeling that I can do this. I can do this. I'm going to feel frustrated, but I can do it. And that's what we like to see. Pat, back to you.
Thanks, Mike. It's interesting. It's going to be a tough year. My heart goes out to the educators and the parents and the people that are going to actually have to deliver what's going to be happening in homes and in schools during this COVID-19 school year. And the stress is obvious. What we're hoping is that the work that you've been doing all along with the proactive caring school exchange to center yourself and help center your children and reduce some anxiety and the different kinds of strategies that you've already been learning throughout the year. And now we hope a framework for actually addressing some of the problems that you're bound to come up with that can empower your children to be involved in solving some of those problems will help manage the chaos. It's not going to make it go away, but help manage the stress, the confusion, the frustration that you and your children are going to face in making the decisions yet to come. And for me, even watching from the sidelines as a former educator, the scariest part is we don't know what's going to come. We don't know how the hybrids are going to work, or the remotes are going to work, or the vaccines are going to work, or any of the pieces of the puzzle. And so anything that we can all do together to give us that sense of calm and give us a language and a shared approach through which we can then apply all of the different strategies that you've been looking at throughout the whole year, I think we hope is going to be helpful. As the school year began, a principal, a friend of ours, suggested to the faculty that they follow these steps when working with their children. And Dr. Force, if you could put that last slide for us, that would help us. Keep them safe, lower their anxiety, make them laugh, make them feel loved, teach them something. And she said, do them in that order. So as an educator, teach them something at the end is kind of unique. But in this COVID world, keeping them safe, lowering their anxiety, making them laugh and making them feel loved has to come first before we're ever going to teach them anything. And you as a parent or other caregivers who are out there, and you in your new role as part-time teacher, these are important goals for you, for your youngster, I'm sure, in the COVID-19 school year and probably in any year. We're hoping that you would agree that wouldn't it be great that the teaching them of something is a way to solve their own problems in a thoughtful, calm, mindful way, while you're doing the more important things, the more important work of keeping them safe, lowering their anxiety, making them laugh because they feel it, and making them feel loved. We think it can be done. We think it can be even fun, and we're here to help. And we really appreciate the opportunity to share some of these thoughts with you today through this exchange and to be part of this network. So thank you, Dr. Force, for allowing us to share our thoughts. And we're open to any questions or comments from Lisa or Peggy or anyone else who...
Well, I have to tell you one word, bravo.
Well, thank you.
As I'm sitting here taking notes and reflecting on what you're both presenting, one thing comes to mind is you're so well prepared and you're so well equipped, and you show up with a knowledge base, but more importantly, you show up with experience. The only thing I would say that a word you use that I doesn't fit is when you refer to yourself as a former educator. No such thing.
Thank you.
No such thing.
Maybe you never give it up. I hope I never give it up, but it's...
that continues across the lifespan. I liked what you said about, solving the problem in itself creates stress all to itself. That's something that people have to understand. And then your point, you highlighted this. This is not an easy time for anybody. The educators, the parents, the family members, the children themselves. There's so much uncertainty. I like what you said about the common language and the idea of, the shared language. Recently, I came across a collection of work, a body of work, and they said in one of the introductory chapters, they said that this is a training of the mind. And here the two of you are presenting a model that really is a training model, a problem-solving, thinking, training model, about how to go about moving forward. So with that, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Lisa and Peggy for comments from their perspective. So Lisa?
Yeah, this is, as always, you guys, do this so well, and thank you for that. You said something about building success on success on success. And of course, that's so true. And I'd like to bring that into the idea of mindfulness and meditation as well. And I've said this many times before, just starting, all you need to do is show up to start, a meditation practice, a mindfulness practice, and every little thing you learn, including what I taught today, the box breathing, will help. And you'll learn a little bit more and a little bit more, and it may be 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 4 steps back, but eventually you do feel those successes. So thank you for that. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is actually very useful, movement can be very useful for reducing anxiety and stress as well. We know we do this naturally, and kids really like this. And it's very effective. Athletes often do this before a big meet. You might see Olympic athletes doing this, which is shaking the body. And that's just standing there and just, I can't really see me doing it here, but just like kind of shaking it out. And you can be a little bit goofy and, put the timer on and do it for 30 seconds. But that also helps to alleviate and reduce stress and anxiety. And that could even, some of these techniques could even go in your little circle. Say right now, what I'm feeling, I recognize I'm feeling that anxiety and stress, and I need to reduce it. And they could have, like the shaking or the breathing, or just taking a moment to close the eyes down and to reduce all that intake, and just do that. So
I think, Lisa, you're so right. And one of the things that when I first started to watch your videos and learn more about the whole program. The cycle could be, I know I feel this way, which of the strategies work? The research, the idea is you don't just run into something, you take the mindful step of saying, okay, I have this feeling. I already know 3 strategies. What do I know about those 3 strategies? That's my research phase. Which of those strategies are the best? I try that one, maybe that didn't work so well. So let's try a different one. You know, that's the creative thinking and the application of the plan. And most importantly, as Mike pointed out, the part that most people leave out is, did it work? What's my evaluation of what happens? That's the end of the plan. So it applies to all of that. And when Mike first designed the chalk drawing, the thinking was exactly that. A kid could actually skip through the phases. A kid could actually walk, because young children need that actual kinesthetic connection. I mean, we all do, but where they get up and now they're actually playing the game of walking through the phases as they think through what it is that they have to deal with today, and especially now in this COVID world. So I think that you're absolutely, correct. That mind-body connection is so important.
I'd like to add a little something. The word success is a problem, because it's in schools, it's like you're either successful or not, or successful or failures. And the failure gets to be a word that's like right close to success. And what does success mean? I think what Pat and I are doing are redefining what success means. If you try something and it didn't work, that's not a failure. That's just another kind of learning. And if you then go back and use that to get better, that's success. So we need to rethink what success means, because the students are going to be ready to be failures. And they're going to be nervous about trying something because it's likely I'll be wrong and I'm a failure. So I'm going to act out or whatever because I don't want to do this. They got this feeling that, hey, they're either exactly right or they're bad and they're failures. And this framework changes the dynamics of that.
That's wonderful. Peg, from the behavioral perspective?
Sorry. I think it's important. Some of the things that you said were very critical to behavioral kinds of things. For example, a student reevaluating those steps and seeing which one was successful or not for them, and then going over that information in their head with their parent, so that you can understand this was okay for me. I did well with this, and I didn't do so great here, so we're going to modify or change. I mean, some of those behavioral strategies that we've talked about in the past talk about, little successions towards the goal, and reevaluating and then rewarding or praising once you get to the end point. So I think the whole strategy of problem solving that you've laid out really does sit well with that behavioral kinds of technique that we've been talking about, or those behavioral techniques that we've been speaking about throughout this whole program.
So much of what you've talked about in the past have been process.
Correct.
Usually, at least in a school setting, you only talk about product. So it's good or bad, and it's at the end, it's too late.
Right.
You and Lisa all along, we're talking about what things you do in the in-between before you get to the end.
And I think it's important, just as Mike just said, success in school is usually a grade, and a high grade or a low grade, and then you were successful or not. In this world, it's, are you successful at just organizing your day? Are you successful in accomplishing something? I have a friend who has 3 children, one who's a high schooler, and she's sort of on her own. A little tiny guy who's 2nd grade, and he's attached to her hip, as she said the other day. And the middle schooler who's spending a lot of time on the computer, but not getting a lot done. So, there's a lot of diversity in success within families, even in this world. And so in the past, there would have been, different teachers providing those structures, and now it's all her while she's trying to work from home. So success is a relative term, and I think that as Lisa said, we're doing the best we can currently in today's world, and parents have to sort of give themselves a break too, as do children, because it's new and different for them as well. And so thank you for all of those supports and strategies.
Stacy?
I think this was great. I learned about this model in a talk with you guys in the spring, and I said out loud, it should be a game. I love the way you've color coded the areas with linking them to the different phases. I think Mike's point around evaluating the solution and how it worked and will you use it again next time really ties all the work together that you put into the plan. I am thinking about ways that I can turn this into an index card, a wheel, and a visual model to actually create as a project with my younger son, who's 13, and then be able to use it. He has high functioning autism, and one of his great strengths is an incredible memorization. And so as we utilize this, Eric will stamp it in his mind. And that's likely for many kids.
And that's good.
Then be able to just retrieve the data independently in time to be able to use the cycles of the problem solution model. I love the idea behind empowering the independence, practicing life skills, and certainly building confidence. And that all goes together. I think the shake your body comment that you guys made is great. In early intervention, a therapist taught Eric and myself, you have to really work out your gross motor parts before your fine motor skills can really come to the table. And so they would roll him on a scooter in a hallway for 10 minutes and then expect him to do a puzzle. So I think that kind of thinking goes back to muscular and connection to thought process as well. And I think that that really makes good sense. I had one extra comment around the to-dos and the dones. And I think the idea Mike mentioned with the masking tape on the wall and then pulling the stickets off, maybe I'm gonna also make a row below to move to the done area, because then it's also a nice visual to see the done work. Or sometimes, like me, an overachiever, an item gets left over for tomorrow in the inbox. And so it's okay to teach that too. I think we've done 9 and we had 11. And so maybe we'll finish those few tomorrow. And I think it's okay to teach that too. I love the model. I think that you guys are doing great work. I love the idea around break down the goals. Peggy, you talked about that a little bit. It's really important to be able to see a goal. But for my kid, his strength is to break it down into smaller parts to be able to achieve it. And I think it's really important to say that out loud too, and to teach that type of thinking, because I want him to be able to think and not get overwhelmed in the moment of that problem, but the path to solution is the breakdown process.
And 2 things I'd say to that, Stace. One is that you could just take one part of the problem solving. You could just work on the research. We call it research, but it's the getting the information piece. That might be it. You don't have to go all the way to solution. And we in school are product driven. We don't think about, we could just judge our success on just this one little section. How many new ideas did we come up with? What game can we play to come up? That's it. We're not even going to the product. We're just going to that. The second thing is Dr. Force gave us the opportunity after our spring conversation to do a parent brochure, which he put on, which is on the link. And we did use your advice and create a couple of games that are there. One which has index cards that are about the problems and trying to match them to the different phases to help cement, as you said, the process in a youngster's head, and to try to do that in a game. So I think it was June 17th was our last one, something like that. But the follow-up link and the newsletter that Dr. Force's organization put out has a brochure that has that in it. And we're actually exploring the possibilities of a game that you might do on the floor. But right now, we would use the chalk on the driveway, because there it is. You know, you can certainly skip your way through the phases with your youngster.
Great. I'll partner with Dr. Force and learn where in our website are those materials. Thank you so much. That's great.
You can find them on the proactivecaring.org website underneath the resource dropdown. So, the two of you are creatives, you're thinkers, you're developing theory and application, and you have a whole body of work that you brought to the table regarding problem solving. And then we started to talk about blending that model into the mindfulness world. Similar to what Peggy and Lisa have so successfully been able to do. Different perspectives, but a unified voice integrating the mindfulness with the behavioral perspective. And you said something which, but then you passed right by it. But I captured it, and I'd like to plant this seed for the two of you. You said something about mindfulness and then assertiveness, and isn't that kind of like a paradox, or it's a contradiction? And my gift to the two of you is to plant this seed and say, I really think you should coin that thinking about this idea of assertive mindfulness. Because what you're doing is you're taking a model that has more of a behavioral theme to it, a practice orientation, and you're bringing it into a world where the emphasis is on less structure. But yet you're bringing in something that I think could be very valuable in an application approach. So this coin term of assertive mindfulness, I think you should really think about and run with.
Okay.
And because I think that there's a real connection between what you're doing and what we're looking to accomplish, to be able to help people stay in the moment, to be less stressful, but you're bringing in almost like a step-by-step process of how to go about doing that. Lisa has done a spectacular job in doing the practice orientations, which he's done every video cast that we've had. And the fact is that as a parent advocate, she's living the experience, and she's done an incredible job of getting her fingerprints on that. Peggy's done an incredible job of coming to the table from the behavioral perspective, the how-to, and I think that that's really been the success of their partnership, a unified voice. When we were developing the ProActive Caring Digital Resource Center, the discussion was, how to stay in touch with Peggy and Lisa over the summertime. And we created the Peggy and Lisa and Peggy. Then my initial thinking was we're going to call it the Lisa and Peggy and Lisa corner. And Stacy's son, Eric, did a tremendous job of providing us with a logo. And it didn't fit, the Lisa and Peggy and Lisa in the tab. So I talked to Lisa about it, and I said, we're just going to call it the Lisa and Peggy corner. And she said, that's fine, because we speak as one voice. And that's what we hope to accomplish. So we really want to thank the two of you for being here today. You've been a wonderful addition. If there's any other questions, please let us know. We have the ProActive Caring Digital Resource Center at proactivecaring.org. And Elaine, could you give out your email address? Because the people that are here today, I want them to be able to stay in direct contact with us, whether they're here in virtual time or they're looking at this and then they want to reach out for additional information. So would you, Elaine, be able to give your direct email address?
Sure, it's esproat, that's ESPROAT proactivecaring@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Because people that are coming across this now for the first time, we're big believers in the power of connections and developing networks, and we want to stay in touch, and we want to be able to provide you with information that you can then share with your networks. So, Stace?
I just have one resource to share with some of our new friends as well. Over quarantine, I became certified as New York's first ambassador for the Choose Love Movement program. And this is a free resource, grades K through 12, for social and emotional learning. And it's a wonderful program. The website is chooselovemovement.org. You do have to register to sign in. It is free, and you can navigate around the website for downloads. And I think it's a wonderful resource for both folks that are with agencies, therapists, educators, and also specific for families.
And could you just give a very quick, overview or detail about the founder and how this organization was developed?
Oh, certainly. Scarlett Lewis is the founder. Very sadly, she's one of 20 parents who lost a child at the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in Newtown, Connecticut in December of 2014. She honors her son going forward to be able to teach social and emotional intelligence. She feels it's every child's right to be able to build a better self. Sadly, many of these shooters that they study the profiles of, we learned and continue, they don't have connections. As Larry talks about, our connections with others are so valuable and so important. And they either don't have caregivers, siblings, friends, circles of support within others to be able to be better, make something important of themselves, find value, have independence, be empowered. And instead they find themselves in basements, plotting and planning, or on computers, or in a solitary scenario, and then go out and do evil things like kill others, which is devastating. So Scarlett has made this wonderful movement called the Choose Love Movement. In only 7 years, proudly, we have program downloaded in 50 states and just about 90 countries. Right now, we just trained 12 more ambassadors, and we have them across the country in different states to be able to connect and outreach and support the education of this great program. Thanks, Larry.
You're welcome, Steve. And what a wonderful testimony, the work that she's doing. So again, thank you for joining us for the ProActive Caring School Exchange. All right, everybody have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.